So is AI infrastructure different than traditional infrastructure? Well, on this episode of AI Insights with John Roese, I want to kind of revisit this topic. A while back, I talked about the fact that it was time to rethink infrastructure, that it was important that you realize that the AI systems that you're deploying today as workloads were not even conceptually thought of at the time that you probably designed your IT environment and the infrastructures you're using. Those infrastructures were probably built to run ERP and CRM and databases and development tools, and they predate even the existence of generative AI. So last time we spoke, I highlighted the fact that given the technology that you're now incredibly dependent on didn't exist when you made your last architectural decisions, it's probably time to rethink those architectures and have a pause and consider, did I build the right infrastructure 5 years ago and just get lucky, or is it time to actually reconsider how I build my infrastructure for the AI era? The response, generally, I think everybody accepted that, and it's a good set of dialogues. People are starting to have those discussions about, how do I build the architecture for the future? Do I need to change the way I approach IT infrastructure because of AI? So today I wanted to double click a little bit on that and talk about some lessons learned, some things that we found that are dimensions of that discussion. The first is the obvious one, that AI systems do not traditionally look like in terms of processing a traditional workload. The first thing that's different about them is they use accelerated compute. They are primarily dependent on GPUs to actually operate large language models that run these systems. GPUs were not really a feature inside of our data centers in the past, except for some VDI stuff. Now they are the foundational capability. In a company like Dell, we have hundreds of GPUs being used to power the various use cases across our environment. And these are probably the most important type of compute that we deploy today to really transform our company from an AI perspective. Given that the fundamental compute is different, a GPU does not exist in isolation. It exists inside of a different kind of server. It has different power and cooling requirements. It has different networking requirements. It is just a fundamentally different part of compute. And so one of the things that we found is that early on, when we deployed our first AI use cases, we just simply added GPU-enabled servers to the environment that we already had. And that worked for a while. But once we got to a certain scale, it no longer made sense to just find another place to stick a GPU-enabled server in. And so we started to build what we call AI factories. We started to build environments that were purpose-built for AI. They didn't do anything else. And in the core of that was obviously the GPU-enabled servers. But as we looked around it, there was more to it than that. It wasn't just the GPU-enabled server that was the new infrastructure. We realized the second piece, which is the data architecture changed. AI systems generally don't talk to our existing systems of record. They don't really talk to the CRM and ERP systems and our legacy databases directly. What happens if you're building, for instance, a RAG-based chatbot to modernize customer care is that you vectorize all of that information. You move it to a different layer of data, in this case, probably a vector database, and the vector database is the thing that interacts with the AI system. Today, we now are calling that layer the knowledge layer, and it's the layer where all the new data management artifacts live that support the AI world. Vector databases, graph databases, knowledge graphs, all of these fundamental tools that actually power and enable AI to do its thing with data are a layer above our primary data. Now, the reason why that's important from a topology perspective about how you'll build out your infrastructure for AI is you have to decide where to put that. Because your systems of record are unlikely to be inside of your AI factory. But if the data you use for the AI factory to run is data that you've extracted from the systems of record, should it be in the same place where the system of record is, or should it be closer to where the AI compute is? Our learning has been it is better to put the knowledge layer close to the AI compute. That's where the performance requirements are. There is very little real-time sensitivity between the systems of record and the actual knowledge layer, in this case, vector databases, graph databases, knowledge graphs. And so co-locating them or making the knowledge layer part of your AI factory is a very, very important step. In fact, we have something called the AI data platform, which focuses on that space of building that new layer of abstraction of data and presentation of data that is solely used to power the AI capabilities of your company. Now, the primary data still comes from the primary data source, but then it gets ingested and it's now presented in a way that AI systems can understand. And so if you compose the AI factory, starting with AI compute and all the necessary functionality around networking and controls for that, you will also need to decide where the necessary data lives. Our opinion is that the knowledge layer probably ought to be in the same place. Beyond that, then it gets down to the applications themselves. Where should these applications run? Now, the definition of an application in the AI world is a little different than an application in the traditional world. In a traditional world, you think of an application as a single piece of software that does a particular task in a repeatable, standardized way. In the AI world, it's more of a capability. So if your definition of an application in customer care is a chatbot that can answer any customer care interaction, the platform necessary to do that, not just the RAG system, but the actual instantiation of that engine, the thing that will do the chatbot experience, might also be part of the AI factory, as opposed to putting it somewhere where you put traditional applications. So you have your compute layer, you have your data layer, and your application layers in many cases benefit from being close to each other, optimized to work as one system. We're seeing the same pattern with Agentic. We've just rolled out our first production-grade agentic platforms. We've been doing agents for a long time, but now we have ones that are plumbed into our data, plumbed into our security. They are architected to basically provide enterprise-grade autonomous agents inside of Dell. Guess where we're running them? Right next to the other parts of the AI factory, because they really are the application layer. The agent is essentially an instantiation of an experience on an agentic platform, and that entire thing is really the application layer of an AI factory. The last thing I'd leave you with, though, is if you put all those together, some of the benefits are obviously performance and scale, because you can actually create optimizations to make all these systems work as a system without any legacy stuff. But the other advantage is by having them self-contained, you can address things like observability, security, and other and compliance risk in a holistic way. If all the parts of your AI experience are in one place, an AI factory, then if you need to apply a different kind of security model to AI, which you may very well have to do, we are doing that because you don't deal with agents the same way you deal with people, for instance, we can apply it to a well-defined space. We can make sure that it works only in that environment and that everyone in that environment complies with it. In fact, we are biasing towards applying zero trust principles exclusively to those AI environments because we can. They are not anything other than an AI factory. So I can make very intelligent security decisions. I can have an appropriate authentication and authorization model. I can have appropriate zero trust principles applications for it. From an observability perspective, it is important to be able to see the behavior of your AI systems. Seeing the behavior of any one of those components in isolation is not seeing your AI system. So from an observability perspective, we've generally in the industry made the decision to use OpenTelemetry as the default protocol. And the idea is that everything in the AI factory emits its telemetry over OpenTelemetry, and all of that information goes back to the same telemetry framework. I, again, can see a consistent view of all the dimensions of observability. What is the overall performance? What is the activity level? What are the behaviors? What are the users doing? So I can see it in a nice, carefully controlled environment. The last thing is that there are other tools that are going to start to materialize that bridge the gap between the AI world and the traditional world. One of the biggest ones, and I like to talk about this, is a technology called Model Context Protocol, or MCP. MCP, you know my opinion of it. It's a very good protocol for what it does, but it's also very new, and it's not really enterprise-grade security. There's still a lot of work to be done to control MCP. Well, there's two ways to deal with that. One, don't use it, which is a bad idea because it's a very powerful protocol, and you should use it. But the better approach is if you have an AI factory defined, if you have your AI systems working in an environment that can have rules associated with AI exclusively applied to that environment, then putting your MCP servers in that environment and controlling them inside of that environment at a higher level of security than they would get if they were somewhere randomly in your infrastructure gives you an ability to offset some of the risks of MCP so you can take advantage of it. Today, we've made a decision to only run MCP in a couple of very secure enclaves within our AI factories or within environments that we can deeply control. Anyway, punchline, there's a lot more to talk about, but last time I told you, rethink your architecture because the world changed with AI. This gives you a little more color about the various dimensions that you have to think about. But regardless, every dimension of your IT stack changed when the AI world started to dominate our thinking. And it will continue to evolve where AI first mentalities say, we really have to start thinking about building for AI first, making sure that we're optimizing for AI. And AI is not a singular technology, it is a system from the actual compute layer all the way up to the applications, all of the supporting functions around it. The more we can think about that and build our architectures to make that work better and make that work at an efficient, scalable level, the more likely we are going to have a competitive advantage as the AI demand in our enterprises continues to grow. I made a prediction a long time ago that at some point in the future, the majority of IT capacity in the world would actually be in service of AI and not traditional workloads. that is rapidly either here or coming very, very quickly. And what that means is we now have to build for AI first. We have to have AI optimized architectures. And one of the best ways to do that is to build an AI factory that is a holistic approach, and to do it separate from your traditional legacy environments, and then just to connect those two infrastructures together. That approach is one that we think is going to work for Dell. It definitely will work for you, but it's a little more detailed than the previous discussion and hopefully helpful. So thank you.